Craig with a K Adams here from Wedding Film School, and today I'm going to talk about a video that I've been promising for the longest time, A7S Mark II review for wedding filmmakers. So I wasn't ready to do the review. I hadn't used it enough, but now I have. I've shot tons of weddings and I love it. I'm ready to talk about it, finally. Finally! So I'm gonna go through everything in this video. So get comfy, grab some food. Let's get into every aspect of this camera. So I was using the 6D and the 5D Mark III before this. There are a number of changes and improvements over using Canon DSLRs to this mirrorless camera. So first up is image quality. That's a big one. Yeah, when it comes to cameras, you want your image to look good. And just compared to the DSLR look, the 6D and the 5D Mark III, it just looks better. And that's like, you know, one of those terms. Like a lot of people use different ways to describe better, sharpness, dynamic range, whatever, all these things, but it just looks better. That swivel screen is dope. This is the best thing ever because Canon DSLRs are just like, okay, you'll notice that I broke my screen, so let's just address that right now. I actually bent the metal here because I had this plate on, and they have, you know, they have a little finger thing to pull out the screen right here. And you really should be pulling it using two fingers like this to even it out. But I really just pull it on this corner to get it out every single time. And I was in a rush. I was shooting some stuff and I just went like that. And then this corner got caught right on the base plate and it just completely bent it. So you can kind of see it's like, it actually doesn't go all the way in anymore. So I'm gonna have to fix that. But I use the swivel screen out pretty much for 95% of when I'm using this camera. I like just having it out towards me instead of just in the back there. I love to shoot like this, looking down at the camera. For weddings and non-weddings, it's amazing, it's perfect. And then numerous times when I'm on a monopod or handheld for like reception or something, I will go high and be able to tilt that screen down to get that extra little bit of angle to see the screen. It's perfect, love it. I'm gonna talk about how I mapped all my buttons in a minute, but the digital Punchin while recording is awesome. It's great, I use it all the time. I don't know why Canon doesn't have it. Magic Lantern allowed you to use it with your Canon DSLRs, but this is just built in and easy for sure. Speaking of button layouts, you know, I customized all of it and I love that, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing when you're using other people's cameras. Everyone customizes their cameras so much that as soon as you grab onto someone's camera, it's like an alien thing. It's like, do you know where the digital Punchin is in this? I don't know what these are doing. So this camera allows you to shoot with a clear image zoom feature, which I remapped to right here so that I can click it, engage it, and then zoom in, zoom out while recording, which is an amazing feature on its own, but to do it while recording, that's awesome. So it's like you get a little extra push up to 2 times with all your lenses. I use it all the time. There is a slight, I would say there's a drop in quality. There's gotta be. And when you're on HD instead of 4K, you also have the ability to do APSC mode push in. So that goes 1.6 even more. So with this one lens, you could go 2 times 1.6, and it's like a telephoto lens all in one. So the downsides, obviously, you will lose some image quality with APS-C mode. And I say clear image zoom, you know, there shouldn't be a loss, but there is. You know, you can test it. The sharpness and the detail is a little different when you punch in and check it in post. So this camera gives you a lot of different video file formats. And I shoot 4K for like, you know, stuff that isn't too crazy, small stuff, vlogs, whatever. But for weddings, I'm always on HD. I love the HD for that. Couple different reasons. One, you won't overheat. So if you're shooting on HD, you can shoot all day, don't worry about it. On 4K, you will start to overheat after like 20 minutes of continuous recording. the camera will be like, it's too hot, and it'll shut down. On HD, I have the ability to shoot 60p, so that's awesome. I can do that for slow motion to slow it down, but then if I don't want to, I can always conform it to 24p in post. Battery life. So when you're shooting on HD, you get, I swear, like twice the battery life of the camera. 4K just destroys the battery, you know, goes through really quickly. That's where people complain, but I'm pretty happy. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batteries for my camera, my kit. You know, obviously if I had a second with another camera, we would have 5 more. So I'd say this is pretty good. You know, I could shoot an entire wedding with these, but I bring a charger and I charge just because I have time. So let's talk about lenses. I have 3 lenses right now. 55, 1.8, the 16 to 35 f4, and then I have this Batis, I don't know, the 85 millimeter 1.8. So I only use these lenses when I shoot a wedding, and it's perfect. This 50 is on my camera for most of the day because I can shoot handheld and it won't be too crazy shaky. And I can punch in, so it's like a 50 to 100-ish range, which is great at 1.8, so I get that nice bokeh. I've got the 16 to 35, which is great on a gimbal for wide shots. And then the 85 looks crazy bokeh-licious. I use that for, like, you know, really nice shots. If I don't want to use this pushed into 100, I'll use that. And then that plus the clear image zoom acts like my 70 to 200. I'll use that for ceremony. And I think it looks just as good, if not better, than the 70 to 200. And it's smaller and lighter. That's why I have it, you know. So I tried the 70 to 200 f4 and 2.8. And if I can get close to the image quality and function out of this compared to the 70-200, this is such a smaller size and just lighter. I love small, light glass. Minimalism, major key. That stabilization in the body is so awesome. Always have the stabilization engaged. I set it to auto because it senses the Sony glass pretty well. It gets a little weird when you use adapters. You might have to manually put in what your millimeter is, but I have great success with that. I'm able to shoot handheld so much more. I've gotten kind of, you know, used to the stabilization. Whenever I switch to another camera that doesn't have the IBS, I'm shaky. I'm shaky. I use this so much. I've gotten used to it. So it's great. It allows me to use the 85 for the ceremony like a 70-200, and it's not shaky because of the stabilization. So yeah, that helps me to shoot handheld way more. And there will be multiple times when I'll be on a monopod for like prep or something, and I'll be shooting, but then it's just like too tight or too quick. Like I'm not moving fast enough, so I'll just take the tripod, set it off to the side, and then just shoot handheld and just do that for a little bit. I also shoot handheld for the reception because sometimes it's a little crazy and you want to get into the dancing. So being able to shoot handheld with the internal stabilization is awesome. So let me talk about autofocus. I never used autofocus for anything when I was on Canon DSLRs just because I know they've got the dual pixel stuff coming, and you probably will be able to use autofocus with most of their cameras now. But Sony has changed the game for me as far as embracing autofocus. I'll talk about the remapping, but I have just this single button C3 up here. I can switch between manual and auto. And then I have this button here, so as long as I press and hold, it switches to what the other is. So if I'm on auto continuous focus and I press and hold this button, it'll switch to manual and I can dial in whatever manual, and then when I'm done with that shot, I just take my finger off and it switches back to auto. And it's fantastic. So the autofocus is good on this camera, but it is only useful, I would say, when you turn face detection on. You get these white boxes around faces and you get gray boxes around other faces, but whatever is white is the one that it's like keying in on, and it goes right to the eyes. It's fantastic. It stays with people. I use that all the time. It's great. If I see someone's face light up gray, it's like the camera wants to use it. So then that's when I'll press and hold this auto and then I'll be able to get the autofocus, and then if their face passes, I just take my finger away and I'm back to manual. It's perfect for like people walking towards you. It's perfect for just like finding different faces within a crowd. And I've tried all the different focus settings. I used to use wide, but I've recently switched to the center focus metering area, and that's given me a lot of success. I like being able to just snap the focus right to the middle. The crop marks on screen are awesome. I export, the way I shoot is that I export and show my films with a 2.351 aspect ratio, the black bars on top and bottom. So I can have just single white line crop marks on the screen whenever, and I actually remap so that I can just press the button real quick on and off. And I love that because all of my weddings are like that way. It may not be for everyone, but I don't have to install Magic Lantern like with the Canon DSLRs to have that on this camera. So the quality of the image at high ISOs is crazy good with this camera. It's fantastic. You can go all the way up to like 10,000 and like you will barely notice noise. It just helps in every situation. It's always nice to have, you will be lighting your receptions and everything so that you don't need to go to that, but it's always good to have the option. And the higher you go, you still have good image quality. So the ISO is fantastic on this. So the built-in viewfinder is great. So many people leave the auto sense. So like if you put your finger here, it'll think your eye is near it and it'll turn off switch that, turn that off, so that make it so that it's always manual, because I want to either be looking at this or this. And a single button, I make it the trash can, will change between viewfinder or LCD. And I love this, it's great on sunny days. I used to use the Zacuto Z Finder for my Canon DSLR, and just having this smaller, quicker, easier, better. I'm really happy with the quality of the viewfinder on this camera. So the card that I use with this camera is the SanDisk 128GB, 95 megabit per second Extreme Pro. So I will put one in each camera. I will give my second, I'll give anyone who needs it. I've got a bunch of them, so I'll just put one in each camera, and recording HD, we're set for the entire day. I've never filled one up, I don't think I will, shooting a wedding. And then at the end of the day, I just take the SD, put it upside down in my card case, and I know that it has stuff on it. So at the beginning of the day for bride prep is really the only time I will use this Rode VideoMic Pro on top, connected via 3.5 right into the side there. I'll have it set to 0 dB, which is a bit different than the Canon DSLRs. I used to be plus 20 dB on the Canon DSLRs, but with this, I set it to 0, and then in the camera, the recording level is usually anywhere from 10 to 15. And like I said, I only use it for bride prep, and then for the ceremony, by that time, I will usually take it off just to make things quicker, easier, and then I will dial it. I'll keep it probably 15, and then at the reception, things get a little louder, so I'm gonna put that down accordingly. So for the entire day, I'm really shooting on this video film reel mode, and inside, I may have the ISO set to auto if it's dark, but most of the time my ISO is just set to 100 for most of the day because I will have a lot of light. My f-stop, usually wide open. I want that bokeh. So like on a 1.8, I'll be all stopped all the way down, depending on the shot though. If it's like a landscape or something wider, I may stop to like f4 or 5.6, depending on how bright it is as well. But for most of the time, I'm really rocking the shutter to expose my image. So it could be anywhere from 1/50th all the way to 1/8000. I don't mind, I kind of like the look. So I pay a lot of attention to the EV. I know what the image looks like on the computer versus what I see on the screen. So I know if it's just like too bright and the camera's telling me that it's good, I will change it. But for most of the time, I'm trusting the EV. It's actually really good for metering. As far as white balance, I'm on auto for probably 90% of the day. The only time I change is when it just doesn't look right and I know. But if I just look at a room and I look at the light sources and the quality and the temperature, I kind of know what the camera should be. But if it looks fine, it's good. If I just have like 100% daylight, you know, the camera knows that, and it does a really good job of slowly changing it if it needs to, if anything. But really the only time that I do lock in my white balance is when I'm using, you know, if it's like a ceremony and we have like 4 cameras rolling and it's like daylight, we're just gonna stick to daylight just to help match all the cameras. And especially like during the reception, once we're doing toasts, you know, you want everything to look the same for multi-cam sequences. And if there's just like weird lighting at the reception, there usually is sometimes with up lighting and LEDs and whatnot, you really do have to kind of fix and change the color at that point. But when it's just like daylight, outside, windows, the auto white balance does a really good job. Okay, the big question, what picture profile am I shooting on? This is the question that everyone asks, everyone wants to know. I've tried everything. I've tried pretty much almost every combination of different color. There's so much more to do with this camera than what we're used to with the Canon DSLRs. So many different options. So many, and I love it. It's such a good thing. This camera does have C-Log and all that stuff, but it's just not good for weddings. As far as my mentality, what I want it to give me a good image, slightly lower contrast, lower sharpness, because we don't want that DSLR sharp look. But yeah, I want it to come out of the camera looking good, but leave enough flatness to be able to, you know, apply a film grade, some kind of light LUT, soft LUT, and look to the camera. And I found that. So I actually don't use a picture profile. I use a creative style called Autumn Leaves, and I take the contrast down -3. I leave the saturation at 0, and then I take the sharpness down 3. And that's what I shoot, and I love it. It's great. It gives me a really good warm look, but just enough flatness to apply something to it.